And we are back to What Did AI Say at VickyL-4AI on YouTube. Thank you so very much for coming back to the podcast. As always, gratitude is the attitude. Let's go ahead and jump right into today's question, episode number 118. What did we ask AI this episode? We're going to start with ChatGPT's answer. Why does it seem like racism around the world either originated or was inspired by racism in the United States? Ooh, that's a good one. Okay, let's go ahead and see what ChatGPT had to say. It's understandable why it can seem that way, especially because discussions of race in the United States are so visibly globally through its media, politics, and culture. But historically, the picture is much more complicated. Okay, we can do complicated. The short answer is racism did not originate in the United States. Although American ideas and institutions have influenced racial thinking elsewhere in the modern era. Okay, here are reasons why it can appear otherwise. The U.S. had enormous global cultural influence. Since the mid 20th century, American films, television, music, news, and social media have dominated much of the world's media landscape. As a result, okay, this is going to be good. As a result, American racial categories such as black, white, and people of color are widely recognized internationally. Okay, so they're saying that because of our media. Now, isn't that interesting? Because our media definitely gets out to the rest of the world, but for whatever reason, we the citizens are kept in the dark for a lot of information. Interesting. Okay, let's continue. American events such as the civil rights movement or protests after high profile police killings, I'm sure that definitely has an impact, receive worldwide coverage. Absolutely. Absolutely. Other countries often discuss their own racial issues using language that first became prominent in the United States. That visibility can make American racism seem like the template for racism everywhere. Okay, I get that. Racism long predates the United States. Many forms of prejudice based on ancestry, ethnicity, religion, or perceived biological differences existed centuries before the U.S. was founded. Examples include anti Jewish discrimination in medieval Europe, systems that treated certain ethnic groups as inherently inferior in various empires, the caste system in South Asia, which is distinct from race but similarly structured around inherited status. Okay, caste system and class system are both subjects that we have already done a podcast on. So if you are interested in the caste or the class system, by all means, go back through our library and look at those episodes because they were extremely interesting. Okay, ethnic hierarchies in Imperial China, the Ottoman Empire, and elsewhere. Okay, so these are different types of prejudices, not necessarily racism. However, these systems often weren't based on the same modern concept of race. Okay, just said that. Modern racial categories developed during European colonialism. The racial ideas familiar today were largely shaped between the 15th and 19th centuries as European powers expanded through the Americas, Africa, and Asia. Okay, now the white race itself, we also did an episode on that. That was created in the 1600s by the elites of that time in order to keep a second Baker's Rebellion from occurring. And basically, what they did was just told Europeans that because their skin was lighter, they had privilege. And that privilege meant that they were, that skin color privilege meant that they were smarter than anyone else. How people believe that is incredible to me, but it definitely grew legs, and now people believe that just because their skin is light, they deserve things that they haven't earned, that they haven't studied and became knowledgeable on. They feel as though they deserve positions that are not within their wheelhouse, which is incredible to me, extremely incredible to me. How you can have a position that you know you are not qualified to have and not even put forth your best foot to learn and catch up. It's like so much of doing a good job is the desire to do a good job. That is a lot of the issue right there. People who desire to do a good job, people who desire to make a good impact, to change the world, that's half the battle. The now once you have that desire, all you have to do is figure out what your niche is and where you can make the most impact. Being in a position that you know you are not qualified for, and then not to do anything within your power to at least try, I don't, that to me is insane. It's like there is a thing called learning on the go, and it is possible to be put into a position knowing that you're not qualified and then learn that position as you go. But to be put in a position knowing you're not qualified and not even bother to learn or attempt to be better, but to think that what you don't know doesn't matter and you can just run something however you think it should be run, but you have no knowledge, no foresight, no experience. So that is stupidity, feeling as though it knows everything. And when you have that, that can't be taught. That can't be reasoned with. You're just wasting your time. So let's continue. I got off on a tangent there, forgive me. Okay, so we were talking about how the one percenters of the 1600 created the white race in order to make the lighter skinned European people their most unlikely of slaves, because that's basically all it was. The lighter Europeans were used as slaves to keep the rest of the minorities in line. Okay, colonial governments and intellectuals developed theories that ranked human populations into supposedly biological races. These ideas were used to justify slavery, colonial rule, land seizure, unequal legal systems. The United States inherited many of these ideas from Britain and Europe rather than creating them from scratch. That much we know. The United States created nothing from scratch because the Europeans who colonized the United States only just took from all of the different cultures that they destroyed. So even our language is pieced together by many words that were taken from different cultures, different races. Like our food, like the American white culture, whatever that is just is just everybody's culture jumbled together. Okay, let's continue. The United States became a major importer of racial ideas. Although it didn't invent racism, the U.S. did influence other countries in significant ways. Let me repeat that. Although It didn't invent racism. The US did influence other countries in significant ways. For example, American segregation laws were studied by policymakers abroad. We know this because I think that we did an episode about Hitler. And Hitler, one of the things that Hitler had done was had the laws and the segregation laws and the Jim Crow laws studied by his people in order to do the Holocaust, in order to kill the Jews, basically. Yeah. I mean, they studied the Jim Crow and the segregation laws, and they changed them a little bit, but they used them to genocide the Jews. Okay, let's continue. Some early 20th century American eugenics research influenced scientists and governments in Europe. At the same time, American civil rights activism inspired anti-discrimination movements around the world. So, although our negativity was inspiring different policymakers and groups around the world, so was our positivity. So was our fight against the negativity. That was an inspiration as well. So, I mean, thank goodness there was some good there as well. So the U.S. exported both harmful and egalitarian ideas. We exported both harmful and egalitarian ideas. Every society has its own history. This is true. Many countries have forms of discrimination that developed independently of the United States. Okay. For example, ethnic discrimination in parts of Africa often reflects local historical rivalries and colonial borders. Tensions involving indigenous people in Latin America began during Spanish and Portuguese colonial rule. Anti-Roma discrimination in Europe has centuries of history. Discrimination against minority ethnic groups in East Asia often developed from local historical, political, and cultural factors rather than American influence. These systems may resemble American racism in some ways but have different origins. Why the perception persists. The United States has often treated race as a central political and social issue, and those debates are highly visible internationally. Highly visible internationally, but again, many of our own U.S. citizens have no idea of what is being broadcast to the rest of the world by our U.S. government, and that is unacceptable. Because American media and scholarship are so influential, discussions about discrimination in other countries are frequently framed using concepts developed and popularized in the United States. That can create the impression that racism everywhere originated there, even when local histories are much older. Okay. So while American culture has strongly influenced how racism is discussed globally, and in some cases influenced racial policies abroad, the underlying phenomena has multiple origins. Modern racial ideologies emerge primarily from European colonialism and slavery, and many societies also develop their own distinct system of ethnic or racial discrimination independent of the United States. Okay, that was really good, and that was Chatgpt, the American U.S. AI. That was that was its answer. I don't want to say there. That's making it too much like a person. That was its answer. That's the information it pulled from the vast online libraries in the world. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the Chinese AI, Deepseek, and let's see what it had to say. And just in case you forgot the question, allow me to repeat it. Why does it seem like racism around the world either originated or was inspired by racism in the United States? Okay, Deepseek's answer. That's a perceptive observation, but the reality is more complex. Sounds similar to how Chatgpt started. While the United States has played a significant and highly visible role in shaping modern global conversations about race and racism, it is not the origin of racism itself. Here's a breakdown of why it seems that way and the more nuanced reality. Racism predates the United States. Ancient and medieval prejudices, systems based on ethnicity, tribalism, and perceived differences existed long before the modern concept of race. Examples include the caste system in India. Okay, that's the same example that ChatGPT used, and as I stated a bit earlier, we have done an episode on the caste system. Forgive me if I can't tell you the episode number, but if you go back through the library, you will find it. Ethnic hierarchies in ancient empires and religious persecution targeting specific groups. European colonialism and the birth of scientific racism. The foundations of modern racism were laid during European colonial expansion, which is, they have the 15th through the 19th centuries, but we know it's the 16th century when the Europeans created the white race in order to have a race that keeps the rest of us in line, supposedly. To justify slavery, exploitation, and conquest, Europeans developed elaborate pseudo-scientific theories classifying humans into distinct races with inherent traits and placing Europeans, specifically Northern Europeans, at the top. Okay, so that is another episode that we've done about when the white race was created, why it was created, and what was done. Thinkers like Gabineo, who is France, and Knox from Britain were key figures in this before it became deeply entrenched in the United States. That is so very true. Both of them are named in the past episode. Why the U.S. seems like the origin/inspiration of racism. Global superpower and cultural exporter. Post-World War II, the U.S. became the dominant global superpower. Its culture, media, film, TV, music, news, academia, and political discourse have unparalleled global reach, which still fascinates me. Everyone around the world knows more about us than we do. That's crazy. Discussions about race originating in the U.S. inevitably become amplified worldwide. This is true. The visibility of the U.S. Civil Rights Movement, the mid-20th century struggle against Jim Crow segregation, was a massive televised, globally resonant event. Figures like Martin Luther King Jr. became international icons. This made the specific form of anti-black racism in the U.S. highly visible and provided a powerful model, both positive and negative, for anti-racist movements everywhere. Export of U.S. racial frameworks. American concepts like the one-drop rule, specific racial categories, black, white, Asian, etc., and frameworks for understanding systemic racism often develop within U.S. academia and activism have been exported globally. This can make local forms of discrimination appear derivative, even if they have distinct roots. U.S. influence on global institutions. American perspectives heavily influence international organizations, NGOs, and global human rights discourse. Frameworks developed to address the U.S. context often become templates applied elsewhere. That is how it used to be. It's not like that anymore. The internet and social media, and it's because of the internet and social media. Thank goodness for the internet and social media. These platforms are dominated by U.S.-based companies, not anymore, and U.S.-centric conversations. Viral moments related to U.S. racism, for example, police brutality videos become global talking points, reinforcing the perception of the U.S. as the epicenter. Local roots of global racism. Colonial legacies. Most racism around the world stems directly from local histories of European colonialism. Most racism around the world stems directly from local histories of European colonialism. The British Empire's divide and rule tactics in India and Africa, French assimilation policies, Belgian brutality in Congo, Spanish caste systems in Latin America. These created enduring ethnic and racial hierarchies unique to each region. That is very true. Indigenous dispossession and oppression. Racism against indigenous peoples in Canada, Australia, Latin America, Scandinavia stems directly from settler colonial projects specific to those nations, not from the U.S. I beg to differ. I believe that how the U.S. treated the indigenous Indians in America definitely sent a message, and that message was that indigenous people could be treated badly, and their land could be just taken from them, which is what a lot of these countries have done, which is wrong. It's wrong, but I digress. Let's continue. Caste systems. Systems like India's caste hierarchy, while sometimes intersecting with modern racial concepts, predate European contact and have their own complex internal logic and history of oppression. Ethnic conflicts. Conflicts rooted in ethnicity, religion, or tribe. For example, Rwanda, Balkans, Myanmar often have deep historical roots specific to those regions, long predating significant U.S. influence. Xenophobia and nationalism. Discrimination against immigrants or minority groups often arises from local economic anxieties, nationalist movements, and historical tensions, not from importing U.S. ideas, though U.S. rhetoric can sometimes fuel it. How the U.S. did influence specific instances. Okay, this should be good. Nazi Germany. Oh yeah, this is gonna be good. Like I said, we already did an episode on Hitler, and yes, let's go ahead and read what Deepseek has to say here. Nazi Germany. The Nazis explicitly studied and admired aspects of the U.S. system, including Jim Crow segregation laws and race-based immigration quotas, as models for their own racial policies. Though they took it to a genocidal extreme, the U.S. did not. Okay, some of that is true, but them stating that the U.S. did not take it to a genocidal extreme is, to me, deceptive, because slavery, because of the vast numbers and so many countries that were participating in it, the people that died, those were genocidal numbers. So stating that the U.S. did not take it to a genocidal extreme is, to me, deceiving. It's deceptive, because we don't know how many people died in the slave trade. Have no idea. And we don't know because the number was so vast. Okay, let's continue. Apartheid South Africa. South Africa's apartheid regime drew inspiration from and maintained connections with segregationists in the American South. Global spread of white supremacist ideology. Modern international white supremacist movements often draw heavily on symbols, rhetoric, and online networks originating in the United States. Adoption of U.S. racial categories. In some contexts, local groups have adopted U.S. racial terminology like Black or Latino to forge transnational solidarity or access certain discourses, even if their local experiences differ. Okay, that's true. That is so very true. And that is something to think about, because if all of the minority groups did decide to not allow racist white people to create division and hatred among us, and we band together, we could take over for sure. And that is definitely what they fear. So that is something to think about, because yes, we all have our differences, and we most definitely, because I think that we have all taken on different aspects of our oppressor. And that's to be expected, because that is the country that we live in. All the systems are racist white systems. They don't benefit any of us. They don't even benefit the racist anymore. Why we continue to use them is beyond me. They should have been changed. I don't get it. But now that this particular administration has shown us the stupidity that these people operate in on a daily basis, we should now know that even if some of us do believe in the superiority, which I've never believed in it, but then I mean, it all depends on your experiences. I've had experiences where I know for a fact racist white people are not superior at all, but other people haven't, and so maybe that's a part of the oppressor's belief system that you still are conditioned to believe. If we can all minorities, this is what I'm speaking of, if we can all get rid of the conditionings and the brainwashings from our oppressors, we can break free and we can make a better country than what we currently got going on. Because what's going on is unacceptable on all levels. And we're all paying the price, because we allowed the most vulnerable among us, which is people of my skin color, to be treated in this way forever. It was okay because, of course, a black person had to do something to deserve that treatment. But now we see, no, you don't have to do anything to end up dead. Nothing at all. When it comes to racist people, they don't care about your color. Well, no, let me not say that. They do care about the color. But they also care about your features, because even if you have the, what do they say, the complexion for protection, and you have features that look non-American, they still hate you. American racism has nothing to do with colorism, and I say that all the time because so many countries have colorism going on, but American racism doesn't care about colorism. It cares about you being an American person, period, and you being you being American. Even if you have light skin and you look Asian or you look Arab, they don't want you. They don't want that. They hate you if you're different at all. Features, skin color, whatever. They hate you. So it's not colorism. It's true racism. Okay. Got off on a tangent again. Let's go ahead and get to this conclusion from Deepseek. Okay, in conclusion, racism is a global phenomenon with deep, diverse roots primarily stemming from European colonialism and pre-existing local hierarchies. The United States did not invent racism. However, due to its post-World War II global dominance, cultural power, and the high visibility of its own racial struggles, the U.S. has become the world's most prominent exporter and amplifier of racial concepts, frameworks, and imagery. American racism is highly visible globally, and American ideas about race profoundly influence how racism is discussed and understood worldwide. This creates the perception that it all originates or is inspired by the U.S., obscuring the longer, more complex, and deeply local histories of discrimination and hierarchy that exist everywhere. It's less about inspiration and more about global narratives being shaped by the most powerful player, or by who was the most powerful player. Okay, that was a good conclusion by Deepseek. And how does any of this affect our daily lives? Well, I mean, a lot of what I said, a lot of my tangents throughout the going over both Chatgpt and DeepSeek's answer is how it affects us. Even though we did not create racism, it was a European concept that early Americans adopted. We still amplified a lot of the good and the bad of it. And like they said, other countries use some of our policies to do their own damage in their own country. So we have to accept the responsibility for that. Okay, I think I've said all I wanted to say about that. Let's go ahead and move on to our positive saying for today. Let's see if it is a positive saying. It could be. Okay, this is actually from Jennifer Welch, a podcaster that I watch occasionally, iHip News, and something she said that was very intriguing to me. There is a problem in the United States where people are able to not apply universal human rights universally. That is so true. It's like, I deserve health care, but that person over there doesn't. How? How is that possible? I deserve to be treated well by police, but it's okay if that person over there is shot in the back. I deserve a legal system that protects my rights, but it's okay if immigrants don't have access to legal when they're thrown in a concentration camp. I don't understand how people can think that they deserve something that someone else in the same country as an American citizen doesn't deserve. That is beyond me. That is beyond me. So I definitely like that saying. Let me repeat it one more time. There is a problem in the United States where people are able to not apply universal human rights universally. I completely agree. Okay, that's all I have for you this episode, number 118. Thank you so very much for giving me about 33 minutes of your time. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to the podcast, and also leave your comments. May take me a minute, but I do get to them. We the people have the power. I'll see you next episode. Peace.